We are going to look at data lifecycle management in this video. Data lifecycle management is one of the components within data governance. Data lifecycle management provides you with tools and capabilities to retain the content that you need to keep and delete the content that you don't want. Let's look at different features available in this particular component. In the overview section, you can see what are the labels created and also the documents to understand more about data lifecycle management. Let's go to retention labels. So this is the place where a label is created, and policies are the ones where this label is actually published on the content present on Microsoft 365 locations. Let's look at how the policy is created and what are different features available within these policies. Click on create a label, provide a label name. Yes. So I'm creating a label which, when applied on 365, Microsoft 365 applications, then or the documents or emails in Microsoft 365, then it should be retained for at least 7 years. So once we give the name, then let's give description for users. And also give description for admins. This description involves change log. So you can give details about when the label is created, label name, description, change, CR. What is the change request that has actually um, uh, letting you to do this change or create this particular label or update this particular label? Author name, owners or admins. Click on next. Now you have three options here where based on these options you can ensure how this label should actually perform in next stages. That means you can retain all the items for a specific period or you can retain all the items forever. So in this label we are actually trying to retain content for at least 7 years. So let's click on next and you have an option called retain items for 7 years. You can change these according to your needs or requirements, but right now we are selecting 7 years. Then you have start the retention period based on section where you can provide on what basis when this particular retention period should start for the documents or any other emails. So the different options which are available are when items were created, or the retention period can start when items were last modified. The retention period can start when items were labeled. Similarly, it can start based on event types. Select next. Now, what should happen to this information, to this documents and emails after the retention period completes? So here are the options. You can, once the retention period is complete, you can let all the documents or data get deleted. Or once the retention period is complete, you can start a disposition review. So you can create certain stages for the disposition. So in this section, you can add a disposition, first level review. Then you can provide reviewer names. So similarly, you can add more stages. Then click on OK. You have other options where you can change the label. So you can choose a replacement label after the disposition period, after the period is complete. You can select on HR retention label if you want to replace it with a particular label. Run a Power Automate flow, or you can deactivate retention settings. Click on next and click on create. Okay, let's go back and select delete items. Let's select deactivate retention settings and click on next and click on create label. This will create the retention label. Now, before creating the label, you have few options here. Publish this label to Microsoft 365 location. So if you click on done, this particular label will be published right now. If you click on auto apply, then this label will be applied only on specific documents based on sensitive information which is available in those documents or emails. Or you can say do nothing. That means you can publish or auto apply later. Let's say I select publish and click on done. Then it will give another section where we can publish these labels. The label is already chosen here. You can add more labels if you want. Then click on next, click on next. Then you have adaptive and static. So this is how the policy is actually applied on different locations. When I say static, you can choose the locations separately, or you can also apply all this label in all the locations. The other part is adaptive. When I say adaptive, let's say you want to apply this label to users of specific department. That means you want to apply this for users, all employees, all members of IT department. Then you have to select this adaptive and provide the adaptive scope here. Now this is a group, so MS Purview test. Now if anyone is added to this group separately, then he automatically falls under scope of this particular policy. And then choose locations to apply the policy. So you can choose apply locations. So this is only related to SharePoint sites. That's why you can see only SharePoint sites. Now let's go back and see the static ones. Let's understand better. So all locations, it will apply all this label to all locations like SharePoint, documents, OneDrive, Exchange email, Office 365 groups. Or you can manually select on which locations you want to apply this label, and also select which of the mailboxes, exchange mailboxes should be included as part of scope, which of the SharePoint and communication sites should be part of this label scope. Similarly, you can exclusively select which of the OneDrive accounts should be part of this scope, and similarly for Microsoft 365 group mailboxes and sites. Similarly, you can also exclude the Exchange mailboxes which you don't want to be part of the scope of this particular label. And you can also select SharePoint Classic and communication sites which you don't want to be part of this particular label. Similarly, you can select OneDrive accounts and Microsoft 365 groups and mailboxes through this excluded option. Select next and provide the policy name. 7 years. Provide the description. Contains data for 7 years. Click on next. So most labels will become available to users within a week, and labels will appear in Outlook and Outlook on the web only for mailboxes that have at least 10 MB of data. This is very important information to note. Click on submit, and once it is submitted, these particular labels are created. Then click on done. Now we can also create retention policies like retention labels are created. Let's go to retention policies, click on new retention policy, give the name of the retention policy. So the retention policy does not apply any label on documents like the retention label is applied on, but basically it will retain the content wherever this particular retention policy is applied uh, on locations such as Microsoft 365, SharePoint, OneDrive, Yammer, and etc., which we will see later. Now click on next, then click on next. You have some again adaptive and static. Now when I click on static, I can see multiple places here, multiple locations here, and I can select all the locations where the content has to be retained for the specific amount of duration that is provided as part of the configuration of this particular policy. Now let's leave it as it is. Let's consider that this retention policy should be available on Exchange emails, SharePoint Classic and communication sites, OneDrive accounts, and Microsoft 365 group mailboxes and sites. Click on next, and then you have 7 years, and then you have when items were created. So this will retain for 7 years. You can also change number of years here. Then you can select when these items are create when this particular retention policy should start. You can start it when items were created, or you can start it when the items are last modified. Then you can delete items automatically, and also you can do nothing. Let's do nothing for now. You can retain items forever and also delete items when they reach a certain age. Click on next and submit. This will create a retention policy. Done. Now let's look at label policies. So label policies is nothing but it's just that it will publish the label which is created as part of retention labels. So we have already seen how a label policy is created while creating retention label. Let's look at policy lookup. In order to identify any policy, you can provide the username or site or Microsoft 365 group associated with it, and then you can search for that policy through this policy lookup. So this particular user is actually uh, part of or the scope of these many policies in data lifecycle management. That is how the policy lookup will work. So this is all about data lifecycle management. Thank you.